Hey there, Internet. Welcome to another episode of the John Grave Show. And today I'm talking about Log Horizon. Pretty much what happened in today's episode. Well, I gotta cover something last week before I talk about this episode. Last week, I kind of had a mini meltdown, pretty much talking about about the mass tonal shift of this show, and pretty much how it kind of stopped focusing on combat and trying to tell a story as we progress through combat, and kind of is now just have the characters stuck in one place and nothing's really happening. And it kind of elevates into this episode, or at least like 80% of this episode is them just talking about a subject which pretty much they could have just spent at best 10 minutes explaining, especially the way how they do it, solely because the main focus of this episode is to talk about world magic. Okay, and they go through the list of all the types of magic and they kind of explain it, and then there's the whole thing of and then the added factor on that is that now they kind of had an interesting way of pretty much talking about how this game was conceived. Pretty much going from before the beta to the previews of talking about the elf women and their kingdom and people being enslaved, and them pretty much making goblins or in this case demi-humans to pretty much attack the people, and how the races came to be of pretty much the people, or at least the humans at that time, pretty much use magic of the elves and pretty much created their own artificial animal people to fight the goblins. In which that's how the legendary NPCs came to be, and super strong NPCs that are player level, and all the way up until the beta sort of became to be, which is when they say this is when the adventurers came, even going as far as to possibly honestly give this place a time scale in case in a relation to the real world. In other words, every time 2 hours pass in the real world, every time 2 hours pass in the real world, a day passes in this world, which honestly kind of makes you think that if they've only been in this world for, say, about a month or so, possibly not all that much time has passed in the real world. Possibly they're just sitting at their desktop, probably just sleeping. However, give or take with how this episode kind of plays things, it's kind of like after the second patch in the game, everybody kind of just lost their minds and sort of just went with their characters. However, this episode does kind of tell us one thing, that pretty much that the reason why they can use all their abilities is because their characters, which is the body, pretty much knows everything about what they're doing, solely because it is related to the game. And the reason why they have the minds that they have is because we already know, is because that they're players. They kind of just don't bridge the connection upon how this happened. So, as I said before, just some shit happened, a game patch happened, and they sort of did that. And there is a little fear now that whenever characters die, they kind of lose their memory. But seeing as how that kind of really wasn't an issue before, they kind of that's kind of like something that they got to watch out now, which really kind of doesn't really seem to really affect our main characters, solely because we haven't seen any one of our main characters die right about now. And before the episode kind of went off, they kind of had this little thing of finally the little level 20 group is finally about to have the strategic team conversation, which honestly is bothering me, solely because if you have been playing a MMO or pretty much any kind of RPG and you are at level 20, it doesn't matter how you get those levels, all right? You are at the level 20, okay? you pretty much should know how, man, combat in this game works. You pretty much should know how, man, to like do a basic team raid or pretty much a regular team dungeon if you are level 20. I don't understand that. And I know that man, their characters can level up by doing like the subclass thing, but at the same time, you still have a main class. So how in the fuck are you not fighting out in the dungeon to quickly gain levels? Fuck, that shit bothers me. However, they're moving on from that and they're having their little teams off. I didn't watch the preview because I want to be a surprise next week. So hey. What did you guys think of this episode? Did you like it? Did you love it? Tell me down there in the comment section. Keep watching the anime. Keep playing those video games. And I will see you guys on the next John Graves show. Have a good one.